we have observed today. And there is no person here that needs a fresh introduction, but we will still do it. We have Dr. Emeka Ononamadu, a former REC, Resident Electoral Commissioner in Enugu State. We have Professor Alex Asibo, who is the team lead for the expert team. Then you have Faith Wadishi, who is the Executive Director, Center for Transparency and Advocacy. Of course, we have Dr. Gamba, who is the Executive Director of CDD and Country Director of CDD. So this is our thing. We're all working together for. So we welcome and I yield the microphones to Professor Alex Asibo to lead us.
All right, good evening, gentlemen of the press. This forms our preliminary statement on our observations on the Anambra elections that are still ongoing as it were. The Anambra State gubernatorial election, one of the off-season elections in today's Nigeria's electoral calendar, held across 21 local governments on the 8th of November 2025. The election held as scheduled in a relatively peaceful atmosphere and amid heavy deployment of police and other security agencies. We have noted the general climate of peace in the build-up to the elections. Recall that in our pre-election assessment, we raised concerns on the preparedness of INEC logistics, security, and the role of political actors in delivering a free, fair, credible, inclusive, and conclusive elections. The following are the preliminary findings from our field observers deployed across the state. Time of arrival of INEC officials and materials and commencement of voting. Reports from our field observers indicate that INEC officials and materials arrived late in many polling units, resulting in late opening of polls in many polling units and centers. In about 68% of polling units, INEC officials and materials arrived between 8:25 to 9 a.m., while in about 31% of polling units, voting commenced much later, between 8:30 and 10 a.m. CTA notes that INEC is yet to resolve its logistics challenges, as earlier highlighted in our pre-election hearing. Despite assurances from the resident electoral commissioner, observers reported that logistics arrangements, including vehicles deployment, were inadequate. In some instances, hired vehicles for the election refused to pick up other INEC officials to polling units, making the initial drop-off further contributing to delays. Our observers reported that due to security reasons, INEC was forced to relocate voting in 5 communities of Azia, Osumoru, Mbosi, Ubulu-Isuzo, Iseke, and Ibu to the headquarters of Ihiala local government area. Voter turnout through conduct of voters. Voter turnout was generally low. Reports from our observers indicated that low turnout in many polling units have been influenced by voter apathy, security concerns, and doubts about the credibility of the electoral process. Some of the citizens showed lack of interest in the elections. One of such experience was at demonstration primary school at Anambra in Awka South, where our observers reported a church program going on simultaneously with voting. We charge citizens to take civic responsibility very seriously. INEC and political parties must also take civil and voter education very seriously to educate citizens. However, CTA commends the citizens for conducting themselves peacefully and in accordance with voting guidelines. Presence through performance of security agents. Generally, observers reported that security personnel behaved and conducted themselves professionally, except in Ihiala local government headquarters, where one of our observers reported an incident that happened between 6:30 a.m. to 7:51 a.m. which resulted in an injury to her foot as a result of the activities of some overzealous police personnel. This has been escalated to the police authorities. Our observers report that in 90.4% of the polling units, there were at least 3 security personnel in deployment. There was also reports of no security personnel in 9.4% of the polling units, such as in Orumba North, Oko Ward 1, polling unit 031. No security was present at about 9:46 a.m. Also in Anambra West, Orometiti Anambra, Umuche 007. At about 10:34 a.m., no security personnel was present. CTA notes with concern the inadequate welfare arrangement for police personnel deployed for the Anambra election by the police leadership. Some police personnel complained that they had nowhere to bathe and sleep and slept in open fields since they arrived at Anambra. Some also complained that they were yet to be paid their allowances, except the 1,000 budgeted for snacks for police by the INEC. 1,000 naira. Performance of beavers through conduct of INEC officials. Our observers reported that INEC officials, in line with the electoral guidelines, gave preferences to pregnant women, nursing mothers, persons with disabilities, and the elderly. The reports from our observers across polling units showed that the beavers worked well in over 80% of the polling units, except for a few cases where some voters were not accredited by beavers or whose names were not in the register where they presented themselves. There were reported cases of ad hoc staff closing polls and announcing results at 2:19 p.m. as against INEC's stipulated time of 2:30, an action which may have disenfranchised some eligible voters. However, as at 4:48 p.m., 3,861 results have been uploaded to IREL, representing 67%. Conduct of political parties and political party agents. Political parties and their candidates played a noticeably limited role in strengthening the electoral process during the Anambra elections. Many of the political parties failed to deploy agents to several polling units, leaving the process largely unmonitored. Reports from field indicated that only APGA deployed 100% to the polling units, APC 93.8%, and Labour Party 37%. CTA notes that this lack of presence of political party agents at polling units not only creates gaps in transparency, but reflects a deeper problem of lack of commitment of politicians to invest in credible electoral practices. CTA charges political parties to actively deploy agents, engage in robust voter education, and take concrete steps to strengthen the integrity and credibility of the electoral process, considering that they are the main beneficiaries of the electoral process, vote buying and selling. Reports from observers indicated that in many of the polling units, vote buying and selling was becoming brazen and was a major feature of the Anambra election. Vote buying also assumed a new dimension: cash transfers, food vouchers, name and account details collation. In some cases, these acts were perpetrated in full public glare and in the presence of security personnel. Given the mutative nature of vote buying and selling, the phenomenon appears far from being eradicated from the polity. INEC and security agencies and other stakeholders need to work out measures to effectively address this ugly phenomenon. Conclusion. As the collation process continues, we urge all stakeholders to continue to conduct themselves in a peaceful and responsible manner. Specifically, we call on all stakeholders to hold themselves to the highest level of neutrality and accountability. We hope that the collation process will be concluded in a peaceful atmosphere. We commend the media, election observers, and the police and other security agencies for their professional conduct so far. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Prof. We'll now also yield the floor to the Executive Director of Center for Transparency.
lot of young persons. They were just standing around. So we just asked, said these people will say they will pay 3,000. We want them to increase the money before we can vote. So you can imagine that. And we had the report from another one of our observers who is dropped on the conversation that some of those party agents were having. One of their supervisors came and was admonishing the party agent that was on ground. I said, why are you giving people 2,000 naira? We gave you more money than that. People are watching you. So, you know, I was kind of heartbroken because at the end of the day, it is citizens that are collecting this money. If citizens are not demanding money from politicians, I don't think that we will continuously have this issue of vote buying. And then when you talk about some of the polling units where we were, saw that we had invalid ballot papers. You see that the political class seem not to be ready to, you know, invest in these systems that benefits them. They are not sending party agents to the field. They are not also engaging in voter education. Remember that yesterday we mentioned that at the central bank where sensitive materials were distributed to the 21 local government areas, out of the 16 political parties, we saw only 7. And today again, we are seeing that out of the 16 political parties, there were not up to 7 political parties that had at least one party agent. In some cases, when you find party agents on the field, and you're having like 5 polling units, they have just one party agent that is overseeing the 5 polling units. So you're asking, you go to this polling unit, you're asking, who is the party agent there? As soon as the party agent hears from the other end, he will run to this person, I'm the one that is overseeing this. So imagine that at the end of the day, they have to go to court. It is that one party agent that will have to give information about that. There's need for us to pay attention on the political class, and that's why CTA is really looking at the role of the political class in our election. So we are looking at party campaign financing. We are looking at the role of political parties and their personnel as it's, you know, and its impact on the electoral reforms that we have. Dr. Emeka, we have heard from PVD and all of that. The person, our observer that was judged is a woman. I wish I can actually show you the pictures. Maybe I will send it around to some of you later. We had, I think here.